Here is the Ollech and Wajs 8001, a very interesting and unique piece with a tonneau case and an integrated bracelet. Now, this model was released last year and it takes a lot of design cues from its predecessor from 50 years earlier, the OW Reference 8000. That model was a TV style case chronograph, but as Ollech claims, was one of the first sport watches with an integrated bracelet. So 50 years later, this watch was reborn, so to speak, and there's a lot going on here and a lot to talk about. At just over $2,000, this unique and funky watch gets you a stainless steel case and bracelet, a COSC Soprod Newton P092 movement, 300 meters of water resistance, and quite a presence on the wrist. I'll get into all the details in this review, so let's get to it. I have to tell you right up front, when I first saw this new piece last year from Ollech and Wajs, I was really enamored. The look of this watch just drew me in, even if I'm not always in love with integrated bracelet watches. I think it was the chunkiness of this watch. Where a lot of integrated sport watches have more of an elegance to them, this looked chunky and brutal, and I can say in person it does, but it's not exactly a big watch though, with the case only being 39.5 millimeters. I'll put all the specs on screen here so you can see the length of this distinctive case and all the other measurements along with the weight as well. So let's give an overview of this watch. Like I said, this watch looks kind of chunky and large, but in person, it's a little bit of a different story. The width without the large crown is 39.5 millimeters. And because of this case style, the lug to lug is a little misleading. If you measure the blocky case itself, it's only 39.5 millimeters as well. But then you measure in the bracelet, and well, things get interesting because really there are no lugs, but the bracelet hinges outwards and do not articulate down, and this makes the length on your wrist around 55 millimeters. More on the bracelet and the fit shortly. The case thickness, for as blocky and edgy as this case looks, is actually only 12.7 millimeters thick, but because of the solid blocky inner case design, it looks much thicker than it actually is. The bezel is fixed in place, and even though this watch is rated to 300 meters, this is not a dive watch, as I'm sure you can tell just by the looks alone. So I guess the bezel here is just for aesthetic, though you can still use it to coincide with the dial markers if you wanted to time something, but not as functional as a rotating bezel would be. The massive crown that Ollech really has become known for is still here. This is about an 8 millimeter crown, and as such, it makes it real easy, even for those with larger hands, to grab the crown and unscrew it and set the time, etc. And usually, you don't find crowns this large on watches 39 or 40 millimeters. Basically, this crown is not dainty, nor is the rest of this watch with this very blocky design. The dial doesn't stray too far away from the likes of the M110, which I did review on the channel. If you're interested in checking it out, I'll have it linked up below, or the 350 Ci model, which is really close to the dial on this one, though the hands are more like the M110. The dial is described as a double lacquered Havana fume dial, and so it kind of has a brown look to it, but also kind of grayish depending on the lighting. And it is, as with all fume dials, it gets lighter in color towards the center. Despite all the text on the dial, the big logo, etc., it still comes off as a relatively clean dial as the bottom text is small, nothing is really overtaking the dial, and it's easy to read at a glance. But I will say the dial can fade out a little from certain angles, more specifically the logo and text, not the hands or markers. Not sure if I can replicate it on camera, but the text and logo are only painted onto the surface, not etched or anything, so it can get lost in this dial at times. It's also kind of hard to see in the dark as well. Well, some of it anyways. Like a few other models from Ollech, only the 12, 3, and 9 indices are loomed, as well as the hour, minute, and second hand. And then in a color, I don't know what to call it. It's not green and it's not your BGW9 blue. Maybe it's C1 lume. It almost looks white with a light blue tint. From what is there, it glows pretty good, but I still find this to be an odd choice to not lume all the indices. The movement used here is the same bespoke Soprod Newton P092 movement used in the M110 I reviewed, and it goes through all the same tests and modifications as before, but this one is chronometer grade, so it has been COSC certified. I talked a little bit about this movement then, as some were hesitant because of the Serica issues with the Newton movements early on. And from what I have seen and read, this is a very upgraded movement in both this and the M110, and I've not experienced any issues, especially with the crown winding and hand movement. This example has been keeping time just under 2 seconds fast per day, which is well within COSC specifications. And so now we get to the bracelet and this integrated bracelet and the issues that are present because of how it is done. I'm sure some of you have seen some reviews on this piece already, and if so, you know that the way the integrated lugs are done, it creates an issue of the bracelet basically sticking outwards and not dropping down to flow on the wrist. So other integrated bracelets have this same type of construction, with the male piece coming off the case and the lugs being created by the bracelet. I actually have one here from Ocean Crawler, but you can see the difference here. Others have the male part coming off the bracelet and the female lugs off the case. Now, this OW has a male link coming off the case that the bracelet attaches to, and that male link does not move or articulate. And the lugs are actually part of the bracelet itself, so you can see how they're attached. They leave no room for movement either. And what you're left with is a watch that kind of wears like a bangle on the wrist. The Ocean Crawler bolt curves down as an example, and believe it or not, measuring the length of both, the Ocean Crawler is about 1 millimeter larger at 56 millimeters, but it wears better as the end link area flows down and not outwards like the OW. It appears this is a very similar way that the bracelet and lugs were constructed on the OW8000, but without having one of those examples in hand or seeing video of one, I don't know if it suffered from the same issue as far as no articulation. And because of this all blocky, sharp edge case style, nothing is really flowing here, and if you have a smaller wrist, this may wear like a brick on you. My wrist is 7.5 inches or 19.05 centimeters, and it does fit my wrist, but it goes to the absolute limit on each side. And like I said, it kind of wears like a bangle. The chunky oyster style bracelet doesn't have much give either, though the links do use screws, and you do have an old school style chunky quick extension clasp to help you get a good fit. But either way, you're going to have gaps on each side of the bracelet and case when wearing this piece. No way around it. So with that, how does it wear to me? Well, like I said, it does fit on my wrist, but is it comfortable? I'll say yes, in the sense that nothing is digging into my wrist and it doesn't feel bad to wear it to where I want to take it off. That said, I'm not so sure that this would be an everyday piece for me to wear, nor would I probably wear it to bed as I do with most watches. So that leaves us with kind of a weird watch. The length of the case with the bracelet and how it wears means you need a large wrist to pull this off, but this watch is only 39.5 millimeters, so it's quite slim on the wrist in terms of width and from the top down view, so it may not appeal to guys with large wrists. I like a lot about this watch, and I like the very funky and vintage design, and I really like the blocky case shape, and I can wear and pull this watch off despite the way the bracelet is attached. I just wish they had done it in a way with articulated lugs, as it would be more comfortable and would fit a broader range of wrist sizes. So what do you think of this Ollech Wajs 8001? Head to the comments and let me know if you like it and if you would wear it, or if this piece is just not for you. While you're at it, if you can, please like this video, share it, and make sure you are subscribed with notifications on. It greatly helps out the channel. I will have a written review as well, and you can see more about this piece on the OW website, both which will be linked in the description. This is Don Evans from Watch Report. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.